Okay, get this. What if a company could take one single drug, put it in two completely different bottles, slap two different names on them, and sell them for two totally different problems? I know, it sounds wild, like something straight out of a marketing textbook. But this is the real, absolutely fascinating story of the blockbuster drug Prozac and its kinda secret identical twin, Sarafem.
All right, let's just dive right in. So on one side, you've got Prozac. I mean, we've all heard of it, right? The famous antidepressant. Then, over on the other side, you have Sarafem, a treatment for something called PMDD. But here's the kicker. Look closely at the active ingredient. It's exactly the same, fluoxetine. So how on earth did this happen? And maybe even more importantly, why? So, to really get how we got here, we have to rewind a bit. We got to look at the huge problem that the drugs maker, Eli Lilly, was staring down. It was basically a ticking clock on their biggest success story ever, a crisis that was threatening the whole company. You really have to understand the stakes here. Prozac wasn't just a drug. It was a cultural icon, a household name, and a financial juggernaut for Eli Lilly. But, in the pharma world, patents don't last forever. They're a temporary monopoly. And by 1999, Prozac's patent was about to expire. That means one thing: cheaper, generic versions were about to flood the market. And Lilly's revenue? It was about to fall right off what they call a patent cliff. We're talking a massive drop. So, staring down this potential financial disaster, Lilly needed a new plan, and they needed it fast. And out of that sheer desperation, they stumbled upon what you might call an undiagnosed opportunity, basically finding a brand new problem for their tried-and-true solution. And that opportunity, well, it came in the form of a condition called Premenstrual Dysphoric Disorder, or PMDD for short. Now listen, this wasn't just being sold as, regular PMS. The keywords they used were severe and distinct. The whole idea was to define it as a completely separate, really debilitating clinical condition, one that needed its very own unique treatment. And what's really incredible when you look back is just how new this diagnosis was. I mean, sure, it was mentioned way back in 1987, but it wasn't until 1993 when it was updated in the DSM, that's kind of the official Bible for psychiatric disorders, that PMDD got real medical legitimacy. And that timing, well, let's just say it turned out to be absolutely perfect for Eli Lilly. Okay, so you've got this company facing a massive crisis, and at the same time, this newly legitimized medical condition just sitting there waiting in the wings. This right here is where those two storylines collide in what you can only call a masterstroke of marketing, which led directly to the birth of Sarafem. Lilly's plan was actually brilliantly simple. Step 1, convince the public, and just as importantly doctors, that PMDD was a real, serious condition that absolutely needed treatment. And then step 2, once that problem was firmly established in everyone's minds, they would just swoop in and present their existing drug, fluoxetine, as the perfect solution. And they were so methodical about this. I mean, they started by building up a medical consensus from the ground up. They got a bunch of experts together for a roundtable, which conveniently resulted in a key article appearing in a medical journal. All of that work paid off in November of '99 when an FDA advisory committee officially gave the nod. Yep, PMDD is a real, well-defined condition. The foundation was perfectly laid. So this all leads to the big, obvious question, right? If their drug, fluoxetine, worked for PMDD, and everyone already knew fluoxetine by the name Prozac, why didn't they just, market Prozac for PMDD? Why go through all the trouble? And this is where the strategy goes from smart to absolutely brilliant. See, the name Prozac was totally tied to depression, and for women who were experiencing these symptoms but didn't see themselves as depressed, that stigma was a huge wall. So by creating a completely new brand, Sarafem, they could give PMDD its own separate identity, totally free from the baggage of mental illness. It let them market it to a whole new audience that might have never considered taking Prozac. And the plan? It worked perfectly, just like clockwork. In July of 2000, the FDA gave its official blessing. Sarafem, which, remember, is chemically identical to Prozac, was now officially on the market. And it was positioned as the first and only prescription medication specifically for PMDD. Just like that, a brand new market was open for business. But getting FDA approval, that was just the beginning. Now came the hard part. They had to actually sell it to millions of women. And this is where the marketing machine kicked into an entirely new gear. It was a strategy you could basically call painting the pill pink. I mean, every single detail of the Sarafem brand was thought out. The name itself, Sarafem, comes from the Hebrew word for angel, chosen specifically for that soft, feminine vibe. The pill wasn't just some boring old capsule. No, it was packaged in a pretty pink and lavender shell. The whole shebang was designed to feel less like a serious medication and more like a gentle, special cure for a uniquely female problem.
And their advertising, it just drove this message home again and again. Just listen to the language in this quote from one of their TV commercials. It speaks directly to women, right? It validates their feelings, telling them it's something more than just PMS. And then it offers this clear, simple path to relief. It was just incredibly effective marketing.
And we're talking a full-scale marketing blitz here. This wasn't just a TV ad or two. While those commercials were creating demand from patients who were now asking their doctors about PMDD, Lilly was simultaneously targeting the doctors themselves with flyers, free samples, and these Lilly Talks. It was like this perfect pincer movement. Create the question from the patient and make sure the doctor was armed and ready with the answer and, of course, the prescription pad.
Okay, so after all of that, redefining a medical condition, creating a whole new brand out of thin air, and then launching this massive marketing blitz, the million-dollar question is, did it actually work? Well, let's take a look at what we can call the Sarafem effect.
The results? Well, they were stunning. The whole campaign created a perfect storm. As all that marketing pushed awareness of PMDD through the roof, the number of diagnoses from doctors shot up right alongside it. And you know what happens when diagnoses soar? Sarafem's sales soared too. It was this perfect feedback loop that Eli Lilly had engineered from the very beginning. The strategy wasn't just a success, it was an absolute, unqualified home run. So what are the big takeaways from the whole Sarafem story? Well, first, it shows that a major business crisis, like a patent expiring, can fuel some pretty incredible innovation. Second, it proves that medical conditions can be framed and even defined to create brand new markets. Third, it's a powerful lesson in branding, showing that a brand identity can be strong enough to literally separate one drug into two distinct products in the public's mind. And finally, it is just a textbook case of how aggressive marketing to both patients and doctors can transform both a condition and its cure. And all of this leaves us with a really provocative final question to think about. On the one hand, you could argue that Lilly raised awareness for a very real and often overlooked condition. They helped a lot of women find treatment they might not have otherwise. But on the other hand, let's be real, they did it to save their blockbuster drug and create a massive new stream of revenue. So it really makes you wonder, where is that line between patient education and product promotion? The story of Sarafem shows us that sometimes that line can be very, very blurred.